up, guys? John Collins with Risen Holster Co. Back with another video today. As you can see behind me, we're in the shop where all the magic happens. For today's video, I'm going to be making a holster that I've made a couple times in the past, but it's not something I currently offer on the website. But it's something that has come to my attention would be a good option to add on the website. So I haven't made this before, this particular one that I'm about to make. I'm going to bring you guys along for the ride, let you see the process, kind of talk my way through what I'm thinking as I'm making holsters, give you kind of a little bit of an insider scoop on how we do things here. And again, let you guys kind of just see how it goes. And by the end, I'm hoping by the time this video is edited and uploaded to YouTube, these will be live on our website. So anyway, hope you enjoy. All right, so here we go. So any holster starts off with a mold. This is for the SIG Fuse, but it also fits the X Macro, which is what we're going to be making this for today. This is a non-light bearing vacuum mold. It's what we start the majority of our holsters with. These vacuum style molds, I think you've seen a couple of them in the videos I've done in the past, but we get these from a vendor and they are considered naked, which means that they do not have any blocking on them outside of what is necessary for the clearances of the gun. So you'll see for the X Macro or Fuse, you've got the channel here for your slide release. You've got some indentations here for your magazine release, and then there's a spot on the back for the safety if you do have a model that has a safety. Besides that, there's nothing else on here. I like them this way because I can make an inside the waistband holster with this or an outside the waistband holster with it. I just have to add the blocking myself. So I have a boatload of that kind of stuff that I have custom made or bought, little blocking pieces, aluminum stuff, popsicle sticks, stuff with tape wrapped in it, and it's just for the pretty much thousands of different combinations that we make holsters for. So anyway, type of holster that we're making, as I alluded to at the beginning, it's one that I have not made many of. I've made a couple on special requests for people, but not on the website currently, and that is a universal style holster. Now, I'm sure many of you know Kydex is not really universal. You have light bearing holsters, you have non-light bearing holsters like what this mold is for here, and they do not interchange. And then besides the few guns that might have similar tolerances, like the Fuse or the X Macro, or some of your Glock stuff like the Glock 19, the Glock 17, the Glock 26. Besides those few that can kind of interchange, you cannot make a holster that fits a boatload of different guns. Now there is a couple of holsters on the market, like the Filster Floodlight. I think Black Hawk makes one of them, the Omni holster, where they mold the holster to the light that's in the gun. And then the slide tolerances are made so that you can get multiple brands of firearm as long as they're using that light. Those are good and bad for certain reasons. But what I plan on doing here is basically making a holster for the gun, or a couple different combinations that might fit that same gun style, but make it universal in that you can use it inside the waistband or outside the waistband. So basically what I'm going to do for that in this particular model is, this is a piece of foamy blocking. You can see here's a Discreet Carry Concepts monoblock that can give the mounting holes for what that needs to mount to the holster. Basically what you're doing when you're making or blocking one of these molds up is you're creating spaces. I tape this here, and then when the Kydex gets formed over top of it, it creates a negative space. That way, when all your hardware gets stuck in on the inside of it, nothing is scraping against the frame or the slide of your gun. But it also has, a lot of it has these holes drilled in it, so that when the Kydex forms down to it, it just gives a stable platform for things to mount to. So the idea would be sticking one of these here, and then stick one of them to match on the other side here. That way, if you're a right-handed person and you're carrying inside the waistband, set the monoblock on this side, carry it inside the waistband. Same person wants to carry outside the waistband, all they'll have to do is take the monoblock off, stick it over on this side, and now this will have the holster reversed so that you can carry this outside the waistband. And once this holster is complete, I'll give a rundown on exactly how that's going to work. It also will still keep the cantability of the clip as well, in case you want to cant the gun inside the holster. But anyway, the reason I'm considering putting these on the website now, because I've held off for such a long time, I don't particularly care for this style of holster. It adds bulk when there doesn't need to be one. So if you're right-handed, typically the foamy goes on this side, you mount your clip on this side, this is absent, and there's nothing on this side of the holster that's sitting up against your body that would be creating unnecessary bulk. By adding this, yes, I add the ability for this to now be ambidextrous, but now this thing is sticking me in the gut. Now, I make it sound dramatic. It's not that bad. It's just not as ideal as it would be if you only had it on this side and it was just strictly a right-handed holster. But times being what they are, money is tight for a lot of people. I know our holster prices are pretty dirt cheap in comparison to a lot of other manufacturers out there, but even 60 bucks for a holster sometimes is a lot. And that, again, it only buys you typically one holster. So you'd have to have one for inside the waistband, one for outside the waistband, one for appendix, one for standard inside. You got your pancake OWBs, you've got your standard range style OWBs that we make, like our Warrior. But then, you know, different mounting options if you wanted to put it on a battle belt or whatever. Anyway, this will allow somebody to just buy a holster and have multiple uses out of that same one holster. And it's not going to do any one particular thing great, but it will do everything that somebody needs. This is also a great option for new gun owners. So people that are just getting into carrying for the first time and don't have a lot of experience with it, this will allow them to try out multiple different styles of carry and see what fits them best, see if inside the waistband carry is even something that they like, and if not, they don't like it, well, they're not out of a holster. Just put the belt clip on the other side and carry outside the waistband. So anyway, that was the thought process behind it. Now we're going to walk through it. So first thing you got to do with these things is decide where you want to place these belt clips on here. One of the things that I typically do is I will flip the mold to the side here, take our blue gun forming jig, whatever you want to call it, and I will match that up exactly where it sits out on that slide. After doing that, I will take a little Sharpie pen here and I will mark right here where the trigger guard comes down, about where I'm going to want to have the finger clearance to grab around. So this basically marks the top of this side of the holster here. After doing so, I kind of give myself a line to come across so that when I set this, it's set in the correct position. It's not too high. It's going to drop the holster down so low in your pants that you can't get around your pants to grab it. And if it sets down like this, well, it's going to set the whole gun up so high, then half the gun's going to be sitting above your pant line. It's going to have a tendency to want to tip, print a whole lot more. So a lot of it is just about finding that sweet spot right here in the middle. Now, the next step is this is sitting crooked, as it wants to do, because it's not flat underneath. So I use little pieces of popsicle stick. These are like a 1/16 of an inch thick, I believe. But I like to slide these in place. I'll have a lot of them that are all pre-cut for different things. And this will give this a stable platform to sit on. Once we have that set, kind of more or less where we want it, we tape it down. I use blue tape. A lot of other companies will use metal tape. The problem with that is it's kind of more of a permanent solution. So if you're going to block out one of these holster molds and have it set up for a particular setup and just leave it alone, then metal tape is great. But blue tape is cheap, comes off real easy, and allows me to, again, use these molds for multiple different combinations and setups. So one thing to keep in mind as we're putting this stuff on is we just want our edges to be as tight as possible. So I don't want any flapping or overlapping sections of this tape. That way this all sits exactly where I want it. So there's that side. Now for this side, we basically want a identical match height-wise to what we just did on the left. But we want to make sure again. Now this is going to set up a little higher because of the channel that we have here for the slide release. So I'm going to have to block this up just a little bit taller than I did on the other side, but it should still be okay. Might end up needing to make another piece or two for this side. I don't make a whole lot of these in lefty. Let's see real quick. Nope, fell out. This process goes very, very quick when it's something that you do a whole bunch as far as these combos go, but some of these are just a little bit slower, especially when you're figuring it out for the first time. That side, double check here. Seems like it's still not sitting exactly perfect. Where I learned to do a lot of this stuff, for any of you guys watching that are just interested in the process of making a holster. Of course, I've got a few things just from years of doing this that I've kind of picked up my own style, but majority of this I have learned from watching Faltac Unlimited LLC. They have their own YouTube channel as well, but he does a great job with all of this holster making stuff. And again, like I said, it's where I've learned a good majority of what it is that I've taken on to do myself for these holsters. So if y'all are interested just in the process of making holsters, he's a great channel to check out. There you go. So now those are both sitting where they're at. And again, have this sitting here and have this sitting here. Everything seems to be tight and we're good to go. So next step in the process is take you all over to the heat press, and we'll throw a piece of Kydex in and warm it up. All right, here we are, 2 foot away from where we just were. Here's the heat press. This is actually like a t-shirt press that you could buy for doing t-shirts or basically a boatload of different things. But it's also great for heating up sheets of Kydex. So this is a sheet of Kydex. This is how it comes to us when we order it. This is a 12 by 12. They can also come in 8 by 12s, 8 by 8s, or even as big as a 4 by 8 sheet, depending on what colors you're getting. This one's been sublimated. This was a piece of Battleship gray carbon fiber, and it's got this cool hexagon and gold color stuck over top of it. This is done by a process called sublimation, so I'll probably do a video for that separately later. It's a cool process that they use to put ink inside of Kydex. It actually impregnates itself into the Kydex. It's not a surface treatment, so it's extremely, extremely durable. But anyway, next step is to stick this in our heat press, and we usually throw it in. I think this press here is 372 degrees. Varies, everybody will tell you that does Kydex, it varies by whatever press you've got. But general rule of thumb is you want to get a standard piece of Kydex. This is 0.08 inches thick. You're going to want to get that somewhere in the neighborhood between 365 to 380 degrees. Each color, each print, they all kind of have their separate working ranges. But you want to get to that range of temperature depending on your press, depending on your Kydex. That's when Kydex is at its most pliable and able to fit around the vacuum mold the cleanest, and without going too hot that it then scorches. So anyway, first thing is I'm going to take an air nozzle and spray any dust that's off of this or on this off of this, and then we will move over another 2 foot and I'll show you the setup for the mold in our vacuum press. That's got a minute, or sorry, yeah, basically about 2 minutes. Right here is our vacuum press. So here in the back is a Robinair, I think this is 12 CFM, 8 CFM vacuum press. What happens is there's a tube that runs from that, goes to the bottom of this little platform here. This hole drilled in the middle has the tube ran to it. And what happens is you put the Kydex over top of your mold. Set this down here so y'all can see. I use this little mesh stuff. This holds the mold just barely above the surface of the platform here. It allows air to circulate underneath of it. Also, if you didn't notice earlier, the mold itself has a whole bunch of little tiny holes drilled through it. What that allows is that once the Kydex is set over top of this, all that air can get sucked through the mold, it can get sucked around and underneath of the mold. And this is considered membraneless forming. So what happens is when you'll see when I stick the Kydex over top of it, I use that frame right there to put pressure down around the outside edges of the Kydex, and it becomes its own membrane. It creates its own seal, and then all the air gets pulled out from the inside of that cavity. So it's pretty cool to watch. It happens in just a couple of seconds, and then after it's finally pulled all the air out, I'll take the air hose and I'll cool everything back off, so it'll hold its shape and everything stays where it's supposed to go. Looks like we got about another 30 seconds. I also, just so you can see how this thing is actuated, down here on the floor have a little foot pedal that runs up to the back of the vacuum pump so that I can actuate it with my foot. Leaves the hands free to manipulate the Kydex and the frame and all that stuff without having any chances of things getting screwed up. Another 5 seconds. Any dust on it might be on that. All right, so Kydex comes off. It's now super pliable. All I'm going to do is drape that over top of our mold. Set this down tight. Boom. You get a couple of seconds here to make any adjustments to your blocking in case there was anything that shifted as the Kydex got pulled down. Once you have it all exactly where you want it and it's good, take the air and pull it back off. Next step is to get this back out. A lot of times when this Kydex really forms super tight to this, it will get stuck in there. So all I do is take it against the edge of the table here, careful not to hit the mold. I'm just trying to hit this edge of Kydex. And give it a couple little taps. It pops right out. Leave this here, and I will move you guys over to the next step. All right, next step. Over the trash can here, take our mold. Should make a point really fast so y'all can see. So now that it's been formed, you can see the cavity that got left behind by adding those pieces of blocking in. That gives clearance to any of the hardware we stick behind here that mounts those clips on. It will now not have any chance of hitting the slide or any parts of the gun. Also built into that mold, you can see these couple spots here on either side. That's for our retention. Those are little points that are built into the mold that help to just hold the Kydex up as it cools and gives us the correct spot to drill into. So I'm going to drill all these out. I use a 7/32 drill bit. That's the kind of the standard that everybody uses. That's similar size to the hardware. So it's not so big that your hardware wobbles all around, but obviously just big enough the hardware will go in. So I drill this out, and then I go back and I countersink all the holes. That's what you're about to see. All right, holes are all drilled out. I'm gonna go back with a countersink bit and get all of this nasty Kydex off of the edges of the holes, make sure they're all good and cleaned up. Besides it just making everything look better, also gives a more flat mounting surface for all the hardware to sit against. There we go. Alright, there's all of our holes drilled and cleaned, and now we're ready for the next step. Alright, so next step is bandsaw. I'm going to cut around the perimeter of this mold and then cut out the little section in the middle to give our red dot or RMR cut. This step is something that a lot of other holster makers typically would use a trim jig for and a router table. So made a couple in the past for some different setups. Haven't quite tweaked them enough yet, but more or less you'd get something like this. This would snap in behind the mold, and then I would just run this around my router. The router blade would then cut off to this perimeter and it would give me my final shape. That is something I plan on doing in the future. The problem is most of the trim jigs you get, they don't match the final shape of how I like to do my holsters. And so instead of spending all the money on those things and trying to modify them, I just do it this way for the time being until I can get the stuff in the shop to allow me to make my own. So anyway, pardon the noise. There is our rough shape of our holster. I'm going to get all the dust blown off of this, and then next step will be to go over to our heat strip and form it around our mold. Alrighty, over at the heat strip. Basically all this thing is similar to the same kind of heat strip you'd see in factories when they're bending what you call it, like plexiglass or things like that, but it also works great for heating up Kydex. So what we're going to do is I'm going to set this on there. It is going to heat up right down the center of this sight channel and allow me to fold this holster over top of our folding drone. For anybody asking, I know it's a hot topic online about having to use real steel when you are making your holsters. I find it unnecessary to use my real gun for forming the holster on. I put tape, this metal tape. Like I said earlier in the video, this metal tape is great for more of a permanent solution. But I took a micrometer, check the slide dimensions, check your frame dimensions. As long as this blue gun matches up with what the OEM specs are, and then I throw on a couple extra layers of tape just in case somebody has Cerakoted or put an extra coating on their slide. Just gives them a little extra clearance. I'd also make sure that the retention point is only retaining where I want it to, and I'm not making a whole bunch of friction contact everywhere else that's going to increase how much you have to pull on this thing to get it out of the holster. So anyway, a little rant on using blue guns to mold on. So I'm going to set this here, let this heat up. You'll see as it gets warm, it'll start to droop. And once I have got it to the temperature that I want it to be at, we're going to throw it over top of our molding drone. Take these clamps to make sure everything gets held in place. And then over here on the side, I have a small fan, similar like to a little desk fan, that I will set this under and let it cool off. You can see it's starting to droop. Usually about the time that it gets all the way down where it's making contact with the table, and then somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 seconds. I like to flex it back and forth just to make sure it's not getting too hot on me. And that should be good. So I'm going to throw this over, set it in place, clamp this down, I'm gonna make sure everything's lined up how I need it to line up. Make sure my sight channel is straight. Nothing's crooked. Take this clamp, set it in place here. I'm gonna set it over under our fan. All right, that's gonna take probably 20 seconds or so, and then it'll be cool enough. I'm gonna set you all up in the next station. All right, so now we're back over here at the blocking station. I'm gonna take my drone, I'm gonna take our holster that is now cooled off, and Kydex is stiffened back up, and we are going to trace with our marking pencil here the final outline or shape that we want to give this holster. So I'm going to start by marking the back of the slide here, mark where the trigger guard comes down, and then this one I'm going to go ahead and leave the full length here so it'll fit a fuse, and it'll also fit the Radian ramjet if you have that mounted onto your X macro slide. So for that, next thing, this is the base of a mod wing for a non-light bearing holster. I like to set that on here to make sure that I'm leaving the adequate space around the spot here, just to make sure that there's space that if somebody did want to put a mod wing on this at some point, which is another part of this holster. I plan to sell a mod wing along with the holster, so that not only will you get the ability to run this inside the waistband, but you can add the mod wing and use it as an appendix inside the waistband as well. Anyway, I like to trace that on here just so that I know that it's got clearance, and so that the lines of the holster better match once the mod wing's on. Anyway, we're gonna, from this point, we've got all of our spots marked, and we're just gonna go through and connect them all. So bring this down, connect from our mag release up to the back of that slide. Need to sharpen this pencil. Oh, for those that are curious, these are just white fabric pencils. You can get them at Walmart or any crafting store, and it's just a really soft, it's not lead, I'm not quite sure what the insides of these are made from, but they're made for marking on fabric. They're also great for marking on Kydex, and then you can wipe them right back off and don't leave any marks that you don't want. Since we're going to go a little bit longer with this slide, instead of following this line all the way down, I'm just going to go from the back of where that line is at down to the end of our holster here. We're also going to mark here and mark here. Now I plan on leaving the sweat shield on both sides of this, so that no matter which direction you're carrying it, you'll also always have sweat shield against your body if you're carrying inside the waistband. But a full shield might be a little excessive, so I'm going to mark down to here, and that will leave it kind of like our medium height sweat shield. That way there's still some to protect against sweat and stuff getting on the back of the slide while you're carrying, but it's not extremely long for if you are carrying it outside the waistband. It's just not an excessive amount of material. Anyway, there's that. Now we're going to move back over to the bandsaw. We're going to cut out this final shape, and I will see you all there. All right, so now we're on to our last step to finish the final shape of this holster out. The last 3 steps that are remaining are to use the belt sander here. That'll be to flatten all of these edges on the holster, make sure everything is square, make sure there's everything's lined up as it should be. From there, I'm going to grab my Dremel tool sitting down here. It has a sanding disc wheel on it. That'll go through and round off any edges, cut off any material that is in need of getting flattened out that were in these curved spaces. And then finally, we will hit it on this buffing wheel here. And that is to final shape anything that needs to be final shape, but mostly so that we get all of the burrs and soften the edges here where this is going to be sitting up against your body. So just to make it as comfortable as possible, make sure when you're grabbing there's no Kydex catching anywhere you don't want it to. Everything's just soft and good feeling. So I'm not going to break down every single step of that. I'm just going to go through and film it all. The whole process is noisy, so I'll probably put some background music on for you guys while you're watching this. And then I will see you over at the other table at the end when we get to assembly. All right, back over to the assembly table. So, got our monoblock, need some hardware. For that, we're going to use a handful of these slotted posts. Should only need 4 of those. Need a couple of screws for the monoblock. Need some screws. So I'm going to send this, when I put these on the website, you'll have 2 options. You'll have couple of these screws, which will already be pre-assembled, so it's going to come this way. But like I said earlier, I'm going to include one of these mod wings, and I'm also going to include the hardware so that this can be installed as well. So inside of this, you'll see extra hardware packets, and I will do a quick video, a separate video that will show you guys how to install those, because it's kind of a particular way that it's got to be done. But anyway, just for this one for right now, we've got our slotted posts for retention, slotted posts for the clip, screws for retention, screws for the clip, and then last but not least, we need our retention washers, and a couple of finish washers. So we need 4 of those. What I will do is go ahead and assemble this like it is a outside the waistband. I have another holster here that I can use as an example of what it would look like from the inside the waistband. So slotted posts, those 1/4-inch retention washers. We're going to put our 2 finish washers up here and our longer screws for retention. Tighten those down. You can see too, I think I have another video on there showing how to adjust retention with these things, but you can see the slot through here, this area that's a cavity. This is so that you can open or close the holster around the firearm. So show it here first. This is my X macro. Check that it is clear, no mag inside of it, and we can slide that in position. So that's a little bit tight. So what I want to do is we're going to take the gun back out, and I just want to, you see, open up that space a little bit there. Okay, now much better. Still get a good click, nice and smooth. Then also showed this has got the Radian ramjet on it, so you can see it's still got plenty of space in the end of the holster for that. So if I was going to carry this, I'm right-handed. If I was going to carry it inside the waistband, I would typically mount the clip on this side. That would look similar to like this holster here. This is also for the X macro, just without the compensator on it. But you can mount it this side, or I can cant the clip into these 2 holes. That's what it looks like here. And I will get the drone and show an example of that. But for outside the waistband, I would, for a right-handed person, flip this over, and I'm going to put the hardware on this side. Now if you wanted the gun strictly straight up and down, you'd put the holes in like this, or the hardware in like this. Or if I wanted to cant it, let's stick it in this way. Stick our clip on here. And pretty self-explanatory with the rest of that. Push those down so we're making good contact with our belt clip and the holster. You don't want to have any gaps in here, so that's good and tight. And then let me switch the camera over and I'll show you guys what this looks like when it's on. All right, so like I said earlier, if I was going to carry inside the waistband, I'll use my drone and that inside the waistband holster I showed y'all. So that's going to go either right here inside the waistband on pants here, shirt goes over top of it, or carry it around your hip. That would be the purpose of the cant. Over top of there, doesn't print. Or if I want to carry outside the waistband, I would take this guy here. I've put the clip on the other side, so all I got to do is just clip that through my pants, have it sit right there, and now I have an outside the waistband holster. Now what's cool about these monoblock clips, good and bad, is they are a little bit of a pain in the butt to take back off. But with having those little claw pieces here, these will actually hook onto your belt. So if this is being carried outside the waistband, you don't have to worry about pulling your gun and the holster coming with it. It's going to grab pretty good there. One more time, put the gun on first, or the holster on first, sorry. Put that on, and we're done. Now you have a range holster, or something that you could possibly conceal with a jacket, pretty big jacket, but mostly just a kind of range use outside the waistband holster, or flip the clip around and inside the pants for concealed carry. I'm gonna stick you back over on the assembly table here. All right, back over on the assembly table, and I'm gonna show how to install one of these mod wings so I can show this thing in its appendix configuration. So we're gonna take the monoblock back off, because we want to switch that back over to the correct side. And then we also temporarily want to take off our retention hardware. Pop everything back out, back down to a bare holster. So with this mod wing, this is the base of it here. It comes with two claws. You got a short claw and a taller claw. This is completely personal preference for what you like. I typically like the shorter ones myself, but just body type dependent, how much concealment. The purpose of this thing, in case people don't know, is this mounts here, and then the claw goes on, and then as your gun is in there, if you're in the appendix position, your belt clip is on here. So you imagine your belt running through it, behind it. This is grabbing the back side of that belt, and it's pushing the gun, the butt end of the gun, in towards your body. Once I have this all assembled, you'll kind of get a better idea of what I'm talking about there. Anyway, like I said, all of the hardware that I'm about to show you is going to be included, but this will be the process of how to do it. So start with your bare shell. You have these two miniature pass-through posts. You can see that they're slotted on the back. You're going to take those and you're going to insert them through back first layer of the holster here. Okay, takes a little bit of practice to do this, but I promise it works. Get them both through, hold your finger there, hold them both in place. Next, you're going to take your mod wing. Of course, I've screwed this up already because I haven't put this on. We'll go ahead and just stick this one on real fast. You'll do this first. Where'd the screw go for that? There you go. You'll have one of these screws in case your stuff gets all mixed together like this just did. This one's got a flat head. You'll notice the other ones that come are rounded, but for the mod wing you want the flathead screw. I'm going to stick that in there, screw that down till it's tight. Anyway, back to the other. This is going to sit right over top of both of those pass-through posts. Also, with your kit, you will get 2 of these eyelets. What these eyelets do is they sit down inside and they go just barely far enough to catch the top side of that pass-through post that's sticking through. What this does is it kind of locks this wing in place so that once everything's tight, this can't just wobble all around. All right, holding all of that together, we're going to take 2 of these longer screws. Again, these will be included. These are just a standard screw, no finish washer on them. You're going to put that in there and screw that down through that pass-through post from the bottom. And just keep going until you feel it get tight. These don't have to be ridiculously tight, but you also don't want this thing going anywhere. There you go. Once those are in, you'll notice how they came through the back of this pass-through post. Now these are a static fixture. These are sandwiching this mod wing on. Mod wing is tight, it's not going anywhere. And then we do the retention hardware the same way we just did the first time. So you have your post, got your washer, your other post, and your other washer. Now the only difference is the last time you saw me put the retention, I was using the front 2 screws. Now that this is locked in place, we're going to use a flat blade screwdriver and we're going to tighten from the back. Now you can use a drill or a regular screwdriver for this. I just happen to have the flathead in mine. So we're going to set that there inside that slotted post. And just till you feel it catch. And we'll catch the other one here. Just till you feel it catch. And go ahead and crank these down. Sometimes you'll feel them catch and loosen up these front screws, so just go back and make sure that's tight. And then from here, we'll go back to checking retention again. That's pretty good. Still might be a little bit tight. So you'll come back with, usually if I'm fine tuning them, I use a flat blade screwdriver. Go back and just loosen these up ever a little bit. You can also, when you're loosening these things up, loosen them independently. So I can loosen this one more, maybe tighten this one more, and it creates an offset, kind of like a funnel shape in the holster. Much better. All right, now all we have left to do is put on our belt clip, which mounts the exact same way we did it the first time. Put our monoblock back on. Spacer, or finish washer I mean, and screw for the clip. Do the other side. There we go, and then there it is assembled in its appendix version. I'm gonna switch you back over to the camera tripod and I'll show you how this works. All right, right-handed appendix configuration with the gun. Put those together. Snap that in there. You're good to go. Pretty much virtually no printing on this at all. Still plenty of room to grab. Even though it has the extra blocking for it being ambidextrous, it's actually still fairly comfortable. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed the process of making this. Appreciate you guys. Let me get myself in the camera. Appreciate you guys sticking around if you have stuck around this entire time for the process of us making a holster. By the time the video is live, I plan to have these holsters, this style of holster, live on the website. I'll have non-light bearing similar to this, but also a handful of light bearing versions as well. The only difference you'll notice with the light bearing version as far as holster construction goes is I will send the light bearing style mod wing, but you'll still have the monoblock belt clip that can be mounted to both sides. And then this holster itself, I'm going to put up on the garage sale. So if you got to watch the whole video the whole way through, you like the holster, you like the print, this exact holster will be up for sale. Thanks again, guys. Appreciate it. God bless.